Hello, everyone. My name is Kyle Anker, and this is episode 8 of How to Do Psychedelics, the podcast where you can learn how to, or perhaps how not to, engage in psychedelics for intentional healing and transformation. I'm here today with Paul Lisy, a partner in LAMPS, the Los Angeles Medicinal Psychedelic Society, and with LAMPS founder Brad Adams. Paul has co-moderated most of all of LAMPS's online panel discussions and book talks. Paul is an NYU Film School graduate who previously was a story editor for a number of movie studios and production companies. He co-owns eFootage.com, a film and video archive that licenses video clips, and he has made a number of documentaries, including The Reach, a film that depicts how a variety of psychedelic medicines helped him deal with what an associate labeled his M.A.D.Ness, his magnified awareness of death, a condition he possessed since he was a small child. The Reach has been featured in a number of film festivals and is looking for a permanent display site. More recently, with LAMPS members Brad Adams and Lacey White, Paul has edited and directed a new feature-length documentary entitled Psychedelics and Addiction Recovery, for which screenings are now being set up. Paul has also written a collection of short stories which soon, one way or another, will be published, some of which touch on psychedelic medicines. And with that, I welcome Paul into the podcast, How to Do Psychedelics. Welcome, Paul.
Hi, Kyle. Nice to be here.
And so, as I like to do with these podcasts, I like to begin with your most meaningful, inspirational, transformational story of how psychedelics helped shape the man that we see in front of us, and as much detail and richness as you feel comfortable sharing.
Sure. When I'm asked that question, I think back to how I was first introduced into psychedelics. You mentioned that I have a film and video archive. I used to shoot. I still shoot a fair amount of video, more so stills now. But I used to shoot a lot of video, and an arborist asked me to cover a gathering that he'd had of gardeners, master gardeners. And I went and I was videoing a variety of people, but one guy really struck me. He's just so charismatic. I'm always looking for interesting subjects. So I approached him after the gathering and asked him whether he might want to do a film together, or at least talk to each other and see whether we have common ground and what we might do. And he was certainly interested. But as we started talking, he mentioned that he was involved with something else that he didn't talk to everybody about, but that he thought I might be interested in. And he mentioned psychedelics, ayahuasca in particular. And I had no idea what ayahuasca was. This was about 10 years ago. And he brought me into his collective, and we started sitting, and I dieted and did ayahuasca with him, several gatherings. At that time, we talked about how we might do a film together, and he said, was there some particular angle or some particular pursuit or something that I felt I needed or could use, and that psychedelics might help me with? And since I was a young child, you mentioned I had what a friend called my M.A.D.Ness, my magnified awareness of death. I've always been very conscious of death, and it wasn't necessarily a positive thing. I could be involved in anything fun, nice, and a thought would hit me, almost like a vision of a black curtain. Just, yeah, but this ends, and it could end any time, and it was a jolting kind of experience, and I was just, and this plagued me for some time. So I kind of asked him, could I use psychedelics? Could psychedelics help me in any way look at death in perhaps a different way, or in some way glean something about the experience? And he said he thought it certainly could. But he also said, what else is going on in your mind about existence? But how do you look at how things work? And I thought about that and was like, well, I do, to counter that bleakness that I'd had. I also kind of thought I had a kind of a theory that we all come from energy. That's just an idea. Again, fairly young, maybe my teenage years. There's an energy all around us, and that we come from the energy, and that we may return to the energy. And that was a more positive thought, but I didn't. But that was sort of a glimmer of an idea. And I wondered, maybe could psychedelics help me test that theory or experience that? Would it lead me some other path, or would it not? I wasn't looking for affirmation. I was looking for an experiences to show me, well, what, you have a gleaning. Where might it lead? So we began
Test the theory of what exactly?
of I had an idea about energy, and that we all come from energy, and could that we there's energy all around us, and that we come from this energy, we
Hmm.
return to the energy. And that to me was a very positive thought. And could psychedelics help me uh, uh, confirm it, in any way help me understand that idea of energy? I'd heard it from other people as well after the fact, and thought, wow, maybe psychedelics could help me visualize that energy, or visualize some sort of other existence, or a continuation, the idea of continuation
So you have
after.
on one hand this curiosity around energy itself and our relationship to it and what psychedelics could show you about that. And on the other hand, your relationship to your madness, this unique relationship you've had with death since you were a child.
Yes, exactly. So that led ayahuasca. It was very interesting, because you're asked to set intentions, and so I started asking, can I be shown something about death and something about energy? And I certainly was. It led me into a an experience of actually physically seeing the energy, of feeling that energy. And there were little signs and indicators that you might be on the right track, so to speak. um, from there, I decided I was had a great calling to experience Iboga in Costa Rica.
But one moment. So you said you saw and you felt this energy. Can you tell me
Yeah,
more about that? What did it look like and how
sure,
did it
sure.
feel?
It was rather the early experiences were rather preliminary. I mean, with ayahuasca, certainly for me, but for most people that I talk to, there's an initial encounter with, say, the fractals. There's a sort of a
Hmm.
color fractal design that comes at you. That, in a sense, was energy in itself, dancing, kind of dancing energy, that I saw it as that. And I was like, wow, that's interesting in itself. But it was also almost, for me, it was almost, I didn't want to live there. I didn't want to just see pretty colors. I was hoping for more, let's say. That those
Hmm.
colors are quite amazing. The designs, and you see things in there. There could be animal shapes and all kinds of shapes and things that were very interesting, but it wasn't necessarily spiritual. And I think I really was longing for a spiritual experience, right? So the first couple of ayahuasca trips I had were certainly of interest, but I don't know that I could say that I had a deeply spiritual meeting yet. It was more intrigued by, what is this, right?
So no
So
lesson about death at this point.
not specifically about death. No, I did not yet have an idea of, well, here you go. Yes, there is something afterwards, or that your energy theory is can be not proven, but more explained, or more expanded upon. Um,
Mm. So you had that touch of what energy can look and feel like in these
yes,
well-known, familiar, kind of these dark blue, purple, jungly sorts of patterns that are common across the world.
yes.
What did that leave you with? Like, was there something that maybe shifted in those experiences that changed the way you related to energy and moved forward in life?
Well, it was certainly exciting. It was certainly more like, wow, there's a lot out there. There's whether it's more that, what, depending on what that energy is, or it was just like, wow, there is energy out there. Whether it confirmed that we are completely part of it, that we go into it, that wasn't necessarily um, confirmed or proven or explained to me, but just it opened me up to thinking more about possibilities. It
Mm.
was rather exciting. One other thing that I very much liked was I guess what they call integration. But right after the ceremony, it was stressed in these ceremonies. It was a very nice group. People that I now know have gone on to form other organizations, and it was all very kind of formative early years for several people. But the sharing, I thought, was the communal part of it was just wonderful. So you could have, say, a vision, and then you could talk about it with others, and the idea of, oh yes, here's my vision, or oh, that might mean this, or it might mean that. I just love the communal aspect of these gatherings. The gatherings were tremendous. So that made me very excited. That it was just, this is something. I'm into something here. I want to explore further. It made me go further.
So what was it about sharing in community in these integrative ways and circles? What was it about that was of value to you in your sharing and hearing others?
I think that I tend to be a loner would be maybe too much, but I tend to be very insular, and I work a lot on my own. And the welcomeness of having a community which seemed to be of no boundaries age wise, sex or age wise. It could be a young person, it could be an older person. That to me really appealed to me. When in my
Mm.
business travels, I had a German partner. I've had a couple of German partners, but I go over to these beer halls, and they have these long tables, and people will be drinking together, and there could be young and old of drinking age, and then up to the oldest people. That always kind of that was fun. And in the medicine circles, I found that even more so. It was just like there's a welcoming aspect, but also an appreciation of each other, a love for each other, a support. I guess support would be the main key of that. Was that I was very intrigued by the support idea of medicine circles. That sure, you're exploring your own things, but you're also very eager to hear about others and also be supportive about others and maybe make suggestions to others. That I found very, very welcoming.
So welcoming, inclusive, supportive. I'm imagining that you experience some sense of like belonging in that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Welcoming and belonging. It was something. This is something that, yeah, very, very, very intrigued by, and I immediately want to support it. And not to get on a diversion here, but at that same time, I met Brad Adams very early on. I met Brad Adams, who was also going through his, exploration. He'd done psychedelics, I believe, a few years at that point, but he was talking about, I want to form an organization. Los Angeles Medicinal. He called it Los Angeles Medicinal Plant Society at first, and I was like, sounds great. I'll video it because, of course, me and my videoing. So from the very first sessions, I'm there sitting there videoing it, and we started bringing in guests and things, and that started that whole aspect of things with lamps and the Los Angeles Medicinal, what became Los Angeles Medicinal Psychedelic Society. So,
I mean, that's an excellent item to bring in here because this really speaks to the power when people come together in potent community settings with shared ritual and prayer in a space where values and axioms and ideals and dreams are aligned and co-pollinated. And so when you come together to share about what was meaningful for you, what are you making of it, there's this beautiful alchemy, and there's this aspect of like the family, like the village, which I believe is what all this work is taking us to. And there, look what beauty has flourished. To hear that this is how you met Brad and how lamps came to be, this does not surprise me at all.
no, that well put. And what's funny, as I mentioned, getting into Iboga, we did a massive
Mhm.
conference. Thanks to Brad, we did a conference in 2018 at UCLA where he worked. He was a cancer researcher, and he strongly wanted to get the word out about psychedelics. So we put on a really nice 2-day convention with a lot of great speakers. And through that, there was a silent auction that one of the offerings was Iboga Wellness was a place in Costa Rica. I hope they're still there. And I bid on it. No favoritism, just bid on it, and I got it. And so I've been called to try Iboga, and there it was through the convention, the Lambs convention, a situation to be able to go experience Iboga in Costa Rica occurred, and it took me a while to get the logistics down to get going and do that, but that's what led to Iboga. And at the same time, I'm hoping to we're talking about making a film, and so
Mm-hmm.
a film about my exploration of what psychedelics, how psychedelics might help with my madness, my so-called madness. And it just led one thing into another. It was like, wow, I will certainly, from what I hear, Iboga will certainly help me plunge into what I've been thinking about as far as the energy and death and all that. So that's how that led into the next stage of things.
Ah, so it's getting into Iboga, which was the next step in understanding this unique relationship with your death, with your madness. All right, let's
Yes,
hear that.
exactly. So Costa Rica was a very eye-opening experience. Iboga was certainly an eye-opening experience. Um, the experience itself, I loved the people. There were two guides, one younger, one older, and you do it twice. You get down there and you sort of acclimate, and again, small group. I love small groups. Um, it's just the
Yeah,
idea to
much.
be able to identify with people and talk to them and really get a sense of that you can be supportive of each other. Larger groups. I've done ayahuasca in very large rooms a couple times, and it's fine, but it's just not the same setting as a small group. That then when you're in a circle and you can communicate with each other is very powerful, very welcoming.
Mm-hmm.
So the Iboga experience, uh, it was root bark, and it was a what I guess they call a flood dose. You're around a fire, and you take this scoop of root bark, Iboga root bark, and with some water. And they say, okay, it's going to take much like ayahuasca. You take it, and then there's a time, maybe 30 minutes or whatever, but it comes over you, and you have to be led to your cushion in a darkened area. This was in like a hacienda, in the middle of a working cattle ranch. They had a beautiful ranch type house in the middle of fields of animals, and so you're in this house, and now it's night, and it comes over you, and it just took me away, big time. Again, in my film The Reach, I talk about the experience, but in that I had a vision of the energy existent, and also of sort of being able to of life forming, bursting, falling into the mist, and then more life coming, falling in. It was quite a fascinating vision of existence, so to speak, of life and death with the energy just flowing. Boy, it seemed to me it was like this is exactly what I was suspecting, and here it is in front of me now. Am I creating this? I don't know, but it was incredibly powerful for me. It was very powerful. And so, um,
So, how would you like describe this experience of life forming, like bursting, misting, death? Was there how did you know it was like life and death energy, and how did you experience that like in your body, in your psyche?
um, well, you're floating. It was almost being in some ways it was being in outer space, but it was being in an internal world, I suppose, of they weren't life growths, they weren't like flowers and things, but it was bulbs like from a mass, uh, bulbous type things, coming forward, um, flourishing, and then bursting, and then falling back down. It was like, wow, that to me. It just said to me, that's life, and yet then
Wait,
in the mist, you know, what it then became, this dust or particles, were then just kind of absorbed in these waves, and then you see more life forming, and then in the waves it's formed. It's like, wow, wow, that could be me. That could be us. We flourish in our physical bodies, and then we return to the energy, and then life becomes again, and you're part of that energy, which also was very beautiful to me. that, okay, so maybe we die, but we're then part of the energy that's influencing everything. And I expand on that again on the reach, sort of theories about what
Mm.
that might mean. And anyway, I get it led me in a number of directions. One other thing I'll mention, which again is in the film, is Iboga. They mentioned that it's very nice for contacting deceased loved ones.
Yeah, the onirigen quality, right?
Right.
Ancestral and
Yes, exactly. And so they actually help you prepare for this. They say, okay, so you're going to be under the influence, but prepare some questions. Pick who you'd like to meet, and then have some questions, and we will help you. We'll come to you during the session, the experience, and we'll ask if you're ready, and then we will help you talk to whoever you want to talk to. So I picked my mother and my father, both of who were deceased. And so in the middle of the session, I'm way into the journey. The guide came, and he said, it's like your third eye. He said, like, here's your third eye. See through that, and who do you want to meet? And I said, I would love to see my mother. And so he said, okay. And he, from under my pillow, he took out the questionnaire, the questions that I'd written, and then he said, okay, well, let me guide you. First of all, where are you? I said, well, in my head, I'm in my bed. He said, okay, be in your home. Where are you? I said, I'm in my bed. He goes, okay, get out of your bed, walk outside, and look up at the sky. So I said, okay. And he said, find the moon. And I was like, okay, I see the moon. And he said, go there. I was like, go to the moon. All right. So there I am. I'm now standing on the moon. And he said, call to your mother. And I said, Mom, are you there? In front of me, my mother appeared, but it was my mother as I had never seen her. She had like what I describe as kind of a fright wig. Older individuals or people may know of The Bride of Frankenstein, that movie. It's a black and white fright wig. So she had hair. She died of Alzheimer's, and towards the end, her hair was just kind of droopy gray hair. Right here, she was a enormous mass of hair with flowers in it, and then she had kaleidoscopic eyes. And she just, but it was my mother, and my mother was not flashy or it was very atypical of my mom, but amazing and beautiful. And I just stared at her, and she said, Paul, and it was just so like warming. So I said, so you're okay, you're good. And she said, I'm wonderful. And I said, oh my goodness, Mom, I love you. And she said, I love you too. And we had a little bit of an exchange. It was just so moving, because with Alzheimer's, they go away in increments, but they go away while they're still alive. In a sense, they're not. She couldn't recognize me anymore. We didn't have closure. This gave me beautiful closure. Beautiful closure. In a sense, for me personally, it felt like closure. I was able to embrace my mother, tell her I love her. She was able to tell me, and she moved on. It was just gorgeous, and that was Iboga. That was amazing. So.
Oh, there are a
It,
few things here I wanna dive into. So you
sure.
very well articulated the experience that you had, the symbolism, the imagery, the undeniable archetypal sort of definition of life. It's undeniable when flowers are coming and I'm like, oh, this is a cycle of life, birth and death. And then there's your relationship to it. There's like, okay, what does this bring up for you in your own pathos? So archetype in its most rudimentary definition is image plus feeling. So you had that image. What was your relationship to the image of this flowering and dying life and death? Like, what did you feel towards it as it was happening?
Um, the word gratitude comes to mind. It was just like, oh my gosh, oh my god, it's just beauty and gratitude in a sense, because it was like, oh my goodness, it was also the fact that I didn't feel that I was creating this at all. It just in front of me. It was just, here it was. And I felt something was being presented to me versus me saying, I want to see this and I'm seeing it. No, I was like, I'm open. I'm open to this, which is also something that I would advise or counsel. Try to be as open as you can with your psychedelic journeys versus I want to see this and I must see that. And it'll be like this or that. I would say more so just
Right.
try to be very open to the experience and whatever experiences to come. And you may well be surprised. I was certainly surprised because I did not picture that. I thought, oh, maybe I'm going to see my mother, but I had no clue about what that was going to mean, or how it was going to be. So the fact that then she had flowers in her hair, it was so beautiful. It was very reassuring and beautiful, you know?
Hmm. And that really speaks to like the important duality of who we are and what we're carrying psychically, biologically, and then what presents to us. Because in the world of making meaning and integrating these experiences, again, most of it is symbolic, archetypal, and mythic. And the idea of an archetype is something out there that we relate to. And the way we relate to it says everything about what's happening within us. So your experience of witnessing the cycle of life and death through these flowers blooming and dying and feeling grateful means that your relationship to this process, to life and death, is one that is filling you with gratitude. And the same extends to your mother, which I also found curious because many of us have a relationship to the moon that represents the feminine. And so he had you. And this is really great guidance, by the way, as far
Never
as
heard
like
that.
being in
Yes.
ceremony. You go outside, you face the moon, this powerful archetypal symbol of the feminine, and then he knows you want to meet your mother. And so he connected you to this force. And then she appears to you in this familiar yet unique way. And you mentioned roses in her hair and like looking a bit like the Bride of Frankenstein. Was there something about her appearance and that novelty that evoked any new like feeling for you, or can you connect it to an experience you've had with her? Like, why do you imagine she showed up that way and what did it mean to you?
Yeah, that one I can't say there's a direct connection at all. It was so unexpected. The kaleidoscopic eyes. I mean, there are song lyrics about such things, I guess, and Alice in Wonderland, the Johnny Depp movie, had that in there, I guess. But
Uh-huh.
for to be with my mother and that was just such an interesting juxtaposition, and to me it seemed almost like freedom. That she would, I guess it reassured me in a sense that she was free because so far from any kind of rigidity or uh, the life that in some ways that she had lived. Um, there were some regrets and some things that went on with her and my father, and it's like, wow, it was just reassuring in a sense. I don't make a direct connection as far as that imagery to it means to me X or Y. It just was like, it just tremendously reassuring that she just seemed free, and that was fantastic. I didn't necessarily think or know that she would appear that way. She might have appeared very sad and mournful, but no, she was free, which was gorgeous, gorgeous.
Amazing. And so after these two experiences, first with ayahuasca, feeling the energy of life come to you in the symbolic geometric jungle colors and visions, and then with Iboga
Iboga, yeah.
and experiencing the cycle of life and death, and then meeting your mother, feeling these apex frequencies, energies of gratitude and freedom. What did this do for you? Who did you become after this? What opened up in your life that you can now look back and say, man, that set me on this path?
Um, I would certainly say that it. I want to avoid simplicities or um, I want to be honest about it as far as that goes. I mean, I've been fairly adventurous in my life. I've sought out experiences. I've sought out you know excitement and tried to understand things. I've been very curious, but this only led me more in that direction. That there are exciting things. There's such exciting things in existence. It very much so did that. So it opened up me. I think in our lineage, my lineage, there's some depression. My father was a very grim individual in some ways, and again in the reach, I talk about that, and I was trying not to. I didn't want to bash my father. I loved my father, but there's a lineage there. I think in our side of the family, the Lisy side of the family, that tends towards some grimness. We're fairly intelligent, and I don't think it served my father as well as it might have to be as intelligent as he was, because he could always think of the worst case scenario and things. So we grew up hearing about worst case scenarios a lot, and the the medicine led me very much in the other direction. It helped me embrace the other direction even more so, so that sure I can experience something difficult or something, a pain in the ass type of situation, and yet I'm like, it doesn't really matter, and yet sure we're still in the physical, our physical beings, and we still get frustrated, or I get frustrated, I get irritated, but less. I honestly think less so, just because I just feel like there's a lot to be. First of all, the gratitude is there for sure, because you just feel like, wow, we're part of something so amazing and wonderful. And so even as times get tricky, not to get into politics right now, but there are political things happening. There are things happening now in the world that seem dark, and yet,
Yeah.
all right, so we gotta just still acknowledge that there's a lot of light, and to bring people towards, more so towards that light. Not my mission. Not I'm not the guy to bring people to light, but just to reflect that light, to show that light. To that attitude can be put out there, and that's only, I think, a good thing. And medicine helped me do that a lot.
So more adventure and freedom, less of this hereditary depression, less grimness, more positivity and an openness. What you
Very,
mentioned
very much.
before, you got to be open to the experiences to receive the gratitude and receive the freedom. And I'm
Yes.
imagining there's been an enduring openness since. Now I'm finding myself curious about how your relationship to the madness changed afterwards. And maybe you can tell us just in a nutshell, like, okay, before this, here's how I was relating to this madness, this relationship with death, and like here I am now after that.
There's one more chapter in the story with the psychedelics, which sealed
Ah,
the deal, as far as
let's
that
go.
goes. And that was my experiences. I had two experiences with 5-MeO-DMT, which
Mm.
I assume you've had experience with. But um,
Hmm.
and again, the reach. I try to describe all this. This was a 7-year journey that I try to describe in my film. Um, the first one was quite problematic, actually. The facilitator, I don't know whether he'd want to be named, so I won't name him, but somebody that we both know, I imagine. Um, I I I I've been told it's a very, very powerful drug, but the most powerful medicine that you can experience. And my experience is, yes, that is true. And I've always had a problem with, or had a problem with letting go, kind of saying, okay, here it is. Again, maybe that same kind of worst case scenario, all these thoughts, as I'm sure it's human and common when when you're trying something that it can be risky or powerful. My mind was going crazy with, oh, are you causing brain damage? Are you doing this? And so I fought it, and it was not the right way, not the right way to try a medicine, because I glimpsed something so beautiful for a split second, and then I just descended into my mind was just racing with it had a purpose. I'm sure it had a purpose, because primal screaming. You've heard of primal screaming. This
Oh,
to
yeah,
me, which
common
was,
with that meow.
yeah, yeah, exactly. This was this I wow. I've never had such an experience before of that type of thing, where I was just screaming. But there was a release in that. I realize now, and afterwards I realized there was a tremendous release in that. So it's not all pretty. The experiences you have are not necessarily, you are not going to be all pretty. This is work, and I saw it as work on myself, which is why I was pursuing it and continue to pursue it. Is that okay? You're going to experience a lot of things. It's not all going to be like, oh, cool visions, and oh, I'm so relieved, I'm so happy. No, it's you're going to dig into a variety of things, so that the first reaction with 5-MeO was very harsh. And I thrashed about. We, it was a small group. It was all men. Yeah.
Prior to this first journey, would
Hmm.
you say you had experienced an ego death before in any of your prior journeys, like full release out of body?
No, I don't. No, I think this was the 5-MeO that I finally had the full what I understand to be the ego death was the first, and then even the second one even more so. Um,
Got it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
I only
yeah.
ask that because from what I understand is like a lot of working with psychedelics and plant medicines is in many ways like practicing death. And they can all
Hmm.
bring us to this completely out of body state where we're like, oh, I am at one with consciousness in some way. And they all have their unique aperture towards it and the velocity towards it. And with five, it's like straight shot to God. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
one thing that I have kind of theorized is that unless you're really, really good at dying and your ego has some experience of knowing what that's like, it's gonna hold on.
Yes.
And the more you resist it, the more that I imagine every fear you have of death is going to come up in that liminal state until you're ready to let it.
I think that's dead on accurate, and I think that's what was happening the first time was that I was just holding on. My ego was holding on to say, wait, 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 no, 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 a big ass no. As I was saying, the guy was saying it's.
Cool.
I went second to last, as I recall, maybe last. Um, and when I went, that you hold pillows and you're surrounded by these guys with
Yep.
pillows, so you should be fine, right? I ended up
Yeah.
I still smashed my head. I had a damage to my head. No memory of it. No memory of it. But afterwards, the guy was like very bashful or sheepish. He said, "You kind of hit your head on the cabinet over there," with surrounded by guys that had cushions. So it was a violent
I mean, you must
experience.
have been thrashing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No memory of it. I remember the screaming, but I do remember so there. It's it's working something out in you. I don't look at it that it's being, well, then don't do that. No, more so, it said to me, you have work to do, which is something medicine continues to tell me at times. You have work to do. It may
In
be.
retrospect, would you have like consider yourself someone who might have been holding back some sort of primal expression, whether it's like rage or fury or just like this animal part of you?
Yeah, unconsciously, yes. I don't know that consciously. I'm not like, oh, I can't express that. Maybe a little bit, maybe even a little bit consciously, just to say, oh, I don't go there, or I feel it, but I'm not going to express it. It's largely for me an not an unexplored territory. But yes, I would imagine so that there are things that you or I was certainly holding back. I mean, again, my my upbringing was a mixture of artistic pursuit and interior gloom in a sense.
Uh-huh.
um it was a mixture. The second time I waited, but for me 5 is something that I will do maybe 5 times in my life. It's a
Feel
serious,
that. Yeah.
I know other people that have done it loads, and I'm like, that, no judgment, no judgment. If you're called continually
I
to
don't get
that
it.
experience, okay. But to me, maybe 5 times in my whole life. I'm actually being called now to it again. So because it's been a couple of years, so it's like, that'll be very interesting now, having all that I've experienced, and then now what? And I think I can go in very open. But anyway, the second time, I went in much freer, determined to let go, and the woman in front of me had an ecstatic experience, and um, so then I went, and oh my goodness, I was just swept away. I saw I saw the energy. I felt like, oh my gosh, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
There it is. We're all part of it. And there it is. And it was so beautiful. So beautiful. And I'm so grateful to have that. Everybody wants that in some way, to be like that awe feeling, you know? So
Oh,
I had that and felt extremely grateful. And when you ask, has it changed you? That has changed me, because I'm just like, hmm, that's out there. That's out there. That's part of things. I don't need to get in. I don't need to be fearful, first of all, and I don't need to be so upset about almost anything. I mean, things matter. My family matters to me. I want to make sure people are okay, absolutely, and that I'm being, I'm being considerate and thoughtful and all that. That certainly matters. But as far as the dread and the worry so much about what's to come, it's radically changed. I don't have a
Yeah.
fear. I don't honestly do not have a fear of death now. I don't want to die. I love this life, but I don't have a fear of death now, which came from the medicine. So if anyone can draw strength,
That's
or
it.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
like when you truly experience death and when you understand how safe and joyous and loving it is,
yeah, yeah,
because I'm pretty sure I've had that same experience my second time. And I felt like my self as a mote of consciousness in all of life, fully connected to everything but my unique little contribution. And it's like, this is it. This is where we come from. It's where we go. And it's like, this is bliss. And so when you come back from that place, it's here. It's just like, well, I know what's on the other side. And to me, that brought so much more levity to everything here.
yeah, yeah. I completely agree. I completely agree. I, Again, I think people generally see me as a fairly happy, pleasant person. I just think I just it's not an effort to do that. I just feel that way most of the time. I'm generally I'm generally radiating. I think not purposefully, just generating a good energy, because I feel that good energy. You know.
Hmm. It's funny too, because I kind of had a similar first two experiences. I bookended my 33rd year of life
Oh,
with a 5
nice.
meal journey, the beginning and the end. Now, why
Yeah.
not? It's the Jesus year, and it was right there. And the first one, while I didn't experience resistance to it, I had what is often referred to as like a void experience. Sometimes you just go into a wash of white or black light, and
Yep.
it doesn't feel participatory. It's just like, "Wah," and then all of a sudden you're coming back. And I didn't tell the story that the dosing was off, blah blah blah. For me, it was being really still and paying a lot of attention to the experience of coming back together. And now looking back, I can look at it from a IFS, internal family systems kind of perspective. I was just noticing parts of me like clicking back in. I'm like, oh, I see you. You're cool. I got to work on you. Yeah, all right. That's a kind of new looking one. I'm just like feeling myself come back together. The medicine is still with me. I'm in my body, and I'm also noticing like this power, this connection with the people around me, and able to feel them, like
Yeah.
how they're feeling
Yeah.
for me, and even like their thoughts. It was supernatural. And then the second time around, even though I didn't have the felt experience of ego death the first time, I knew I had gone to a deathful place, even though I didn't remember it, didn't have the embodiment. And so the second time, it was like the Goldilocks dose. And I
Yes.
felt it coming. And then I'm like, all right, my ego jumped up. It's like, you're dying, resist. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, I know where this goes. I said, you're just taking a nap for a bit. And once I said that, had that conversation with that part, I just slowly laid back. And it felt like my body from my toes and fingers was like closing in like a flower, and it closed in through my heart. And that's the last breath I remember feeling. That's the last heartbeat I remember feeling. And then as soon as it like imploded, then it exploded into this beautiful, perfectly geometric fractal experience of like light and love, like beating and effusing. And I'm like, that's the space that I remembered when you just said that story. It's like, that's love. This is life. This is death. This is everything.
Yes, exactly. Trying to picture that for a film, because it wasn't necessarily extremely visual. It was more a very very strong feeling. I mean, I saw something, but for me, it was more. Oh, it's just so overwhelmed. It overwhelmed me, and so I came up with an image that I was like, this is okay, but it was more a overwhelming feeling that you're just part of. And it's funny. I was in Vienna with my son. My son and his wife love to travel, so my wife and I have joined my son in a variety of cool adventures, and we were listening to a choir. That choir, I had a flashback to my five experience, almost overwhelming. I almost collapsed because what are they called? Flashbacks? They're called whatever. But I hadn't remembered necessarily choir music in my initial experience, but it was, oh my gosh, my son, are you okay? And I was like, oh, so it was very interesting. It's just that there are elements there that
Are
are
you
of
saying
beauty, you know,
the music felt similar to what you heard on the journey?
or that no, it brought me back to the feeling of the journey. It flashed me back to the I was back in that feeling of
Uh-huh.
seeing what I termed during the experience. People tell me I kept saying Nirvana. This is
Hmm.
Nirvana,
There you go.
and I was back there when that choir music hit, which I just find interesting. Again, I didn't remember the choir music as part of it. I actually put in the film. I put some choir music when I said there I was, because it was like, wow, it was an element, I guess. It's just there's a beauty to that. There's a density of reflection, of a beauty reflection in a choir that can be just indicative of that same thing, I guess. You know.
Yes. Like two things there came up for me. It's why I asked about the music, because music is an incredibly powerful
Yeah.
anchor
Yes.
during the experience. And so if choir music was played during the journey and you like listen to some similar choir music later, that has
Yeah.
a very high possibility of like reactivating that state, which wasn't the case here, which can be true. But what I'm imagining is you're in a place of God listening to music that is designed to connect to God. And my guess is everything in that setting has been designed to emulate an experience somebody once had, quite similar to what you had, carrying that energy, that frequency, and that prayer. And so, boom, there you are.
It occurs to me. I don't know. I'm curious whether you've encountered this. Certain highly religious people have actually had a problem with my psychedelic experiences and my discussion of psychedelics. They feel almost threatened, like I'm dabbling something that is misleading or not true, and I'm almost a rejection of their religious beliefs, which I'm not taking it at all. But I wonder whether you've encountered that resistance from religious individuals.
I haven't directly encountered resistance from religious folk. It's interesting you asked that, because one of my closest friends here, my massage therapist, who I see like a couple times a month, like he is a very devout follower of Christ and has
Hmm.
never worked with psychedelics.
Hmm.
And he holds prayer circle every week. And so I asked him during our last session, like, well, have you ever had a direct experience of God? And he's like, oh, totally. One of his uncles he was very close to, in some ways closer to than his father, had passed. And he was just walking through a graveyard once, and out where he was from, somewhere in Norway, they're more inviting and social places. And he was called over to a tree, and he touched this tree just like to lean on it. It wasn't like some kind of mystical call, but as he did that, he felt the presence of God. It was changed ever since. And I've shared with him many of my psychedelic experiences, never to any judgment. But what you say, it I can't help but think about, it makes me feel bad, because a lot of people who practice organized religion, they're roped into practicing in a way that I believe is intentionally designed to keep them from having the true experience of God that is accessible through these tools. And that can come to people who have like that deep relationship, like my friend. But it's it's almost like I feel like way, way long ago, when there was this direct contact with God, or maybe when people were found practicing in these old pagan and heathen ways and connecting directly to the earth and to spirit and to God, I feel like someone said, this is too much power for common people. And how can we manage them if they're so free and full
I
of
see.
gratitude? And like the teachings of Jesus and all the life he inspired in people, and they had to take that,
Yeah.
separate it from the people. Come to our beautiful church, listen to these songs. We will give you what we think that you are capable of receiving, but we're going to maintain our relationship with God in a different way. This is my belief. At least it seems that way. The way a religion has largely been built over the years, and perhaps this is why I find myself studying the ways of the old gods in the Norse, because they still have that direct connection, in
Yeah.
my sense.
Yeah. It feels like an underestimating of the capabilities of the individual, the common man, to say, no, you can't handle this. That's not, I would say it's not for them to decide that. It's, let them pursue their callings and experience what they have, what can be experienced. Anyway, so yes, this is, that's my, I guess I was saying how has it helped me with my madness, and it greatly has. It certainly has. That I find myself now in definitely a different position, mentally, spiritually, as far as what I fear and don't fear. So I do not fear it now, which is
Yeah,
incredibly beneficial. I will say, uh,
maybe.
since then, um, I have not had. I continue to do some psychedelics. Um, what's the cactus, that
Two,
not
there's Huachuma and Peyote.
Huachuma? Okay, the nicest experience that I've had of recent, I think it was last year, was Huachuma. Wouldn't necessarily, it was extremely spiritual, and it was not visual, but it was very loving. So just to put this out there, that has certainly has great value. But there's a place, in a house in Santa Barbara, that I've gone to a couple times, with some really close friends, and we did Huachuma, and I had
I
a
believe I
session.
know that place.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Um, I don't think you and I have met there, but the experience was, and again, I hadn't planned this, hadn't thought about it, but I'm sitting there in their beautiful living room, and loved ones, one after another, appeared before me in my mind's eye, and I just told them how much I love them, and I felt it. I mean, I seriously felt and said to them mentally, and then it would disappear. And the next one, my daughter showed up, and it was just such an amazing. It's just such a beautiful experience. I just was like, I don't know whether they felt this. They will feel it. They continue to hopefully feel it from me, but who knows? Maybe when they were driving, they got this little feeling at the time, but it was an incredibly beautiful experience. I'll just share that it was just, it wasn't the same thing, but it was something that, again, and
Mm-hmm.
it helps me, I think, as well, just to realize, hey, you have these wonderful people in your life, and you do love them so much, and I'm able to really appreciate that. I'm not one thing that I would say psychedelics have done is that cloud that normal life, so-called normal life, can put some people under, that grimness that you can be just feeling it all the time, this grimness, it helped dissipate that a lot, so that I can then understand. I can definitely appreciate what I'm grateful for even more so than if I did not have those medicines in my life. I put it
Mm.
that way.
Yeah. As a good friend of mine says often, that's a prayer God can work with.
Yeah.
I want to respond to the cactus bit, but I also want to go back real quick to the 5-MeO thing and put a little pin in that. I am not in any way saying that we should all run out there and do
Yes.
5-MeO. It
Same.
is
Same.
definitely one of the most powerful medicines out there. And like any of these psychedelics and plant medicines, they aren't for everyone. And if you're thinking about it, I just really offer you to contemplate, am I ready for a meeting with God? And as far as set and setting, and particularly like guidance and space holder and skill and experience, a lot of people holding this medicine, because the people that there are some that are drawn to hold this medicine because it does bring in the biggest light, and it can draw some of the biggest darkness too. And so I just want to temper any enthusiasm that's been cultivated out there. It is beautiful, beyond far changed my life. And I still hold this deep fear and reverence. I've been offered it many times since, and I'm like, not yet. I still got the call. Now I'm working more with like lighter doses and like playing in that field of the energy, because I recently did another full dose and I'm like, oh, I remember this. I mean, yeah, it's still there.
Oh,
So
interesting.
just offering some tempering and then be really curious if you're feeling it. Like definitely do your study and ask around and like find someone that you really really trust.
Yeah,
That one.
pick your support carefully. Do not do it by yourself. Almost all psychedelics, I would say, especially initially, don't do them by yourself. You don't have the tools to be able to grapple with all that you're going to encounter. I would say, just these people that are saying, "Oh my God, I was in my basement and I do this and that, and I have a vape pen that has," oh, be careful, please. I'm very wary of all that.
Mm.
You
And
know,
one thing that's possible in psychedelic and plant medicine experiences is re-traumatization. Because if you are experiencing an old wound and it's playing out and it's not held in a skilled way, it could just completely like recapitulate in your being. And so, like we said before, if you're not comfortable with dying, which most of us aren't, your deepest fears of death are going to come up. And if there's something there that's really deep and gnarly that you know of or even don't know of, and you don't have an expert there to like show up in the proper way, you could come out worse for wear. And
yeah.
again, it's like it's so fast and intense with this medicine. So that's where I just want to put that out there, put a pin in that little service announcement around the most powerful molecule out there.
I'll ask you a question. I'm hearing lately that there's some facilitators that titrate. So basically, they give us fairly small dose and then a little one. I have
Mm-hmm.
mixed emotions about that because I was like, wow, I was able to master or get better at letting go, and I'm like, it was a beautiful experience. And will it be the same experience if I titrate up? Have you had experiences with that kind of a distribution versus one blast, so to speak?
I had the full kind of experiences in my first two, the void and then unity,
Hmm.
God consciousness.
Yeah.
And I have also played with the pens before, not up to full release, but I can see how it can get there and like take you through the levels of moving through your energy bodies and moving through what might come up in each level towards that. And I could see how that could be more safe. I can see that.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's comforting in a way to think you're going to ramp up versus, oh my God, So
because the
I'm,
dosing is so challenging with this medicine,
yeah,
especially if
yeah,
you're working with like bufo itself, just the frog venom. It's a huge crapshoot with all the different like alkaloids in it, and then you have phalaris grass and synthetic, which is easier to dose, but it's still like so little. It's such a powerful thing, and there's so many different tools out there that can do it differently. But this really dials in your ability to give exactly as much as you want, and
right.
that's
Oh,
really
okay.
helpful.
Nice. I'm curious. Maybe this next time I might try that. Do it that way. It's coming. I know of a number of several facilitators that I'm trying to think, who do I want to be with and how to do it. I might even just follow their guidance if there's some people I really really like, and I'm like, huh, maybe I'll do it with that person.
Yeah, they're
See.
out there. It's probably the fastest growing modality with this medicine, and for good reason, because this medicine is one of the most popular out there that people are just going Hail Mary for. And so this technology is meeting that need. I want to circle back to the cactus because Huachuma was my training ground.
Ah,
When I came back completely discombobulated and torn apart from being poorly handled in the Amazon, which I touched upon in a prior episode, there were many things that helped to put me back together. But it was my training and mentorship and apprenticeship with my teacher, who was a Huachumero, that like helped me understand how to hold space. It helped me understand that healing didn't need to be destructive and chaotic, like with all the ayahuasca I was doing beforehand, and mushrooms to a degree. And there's something about the healing that is unique when you are very much embodied, cognizant what's going on in an altered state, but you're not blasted off into the ethos. And it's in community.
absolutely.
It's like it's this powerful masculine medicine that has drunk in the energy of the sun. It wants you to be alive and to be vibrant and to sing and dance and share poetry and move your body. Yes, you can be still and go on a deep meditation. But what I find is this with the cactus medicines, the things that are going to come up, you can work with
Yeah.
there. You can work with it with yourself. If someone's in that space you got some grind with that's activating, you can work it out. And if you have a skilled facilitator with you, like, it can just compress the time for healing. And I kind of want to dovetail into my most recent cactus experience. I had my first 2 experiences with peyote last week, and they came here to the mountain, and it was served by Marikames of the Warataka. So Marakame is kind of the name for shamans in this unbroken lineage of servants to this medicine. And for them, it's the medicine of the blue deer, because way back in the day when they were hungry and lost and falling apart, and like they were a dying people, this blue deer came to some of the people in this village in a vision and said, "Come hunt me." And then when they hunted it and killed it, story says it exploded into all these like peyote cactus buttons that went everywhere. Eat my flesh. And so they ate these little buttons.
That's great.
And now I can start to tell you what it's like, what happened, because here I am thinking, okay, cactus, I know they're different, but they have similarities, similar alkaloids, the mescaline quality and this and that. And I expected something different, but something of a combination of experiences I've had that would be easier to articulate, just make sense. What I experienced was the most powerful healing in community space I have ever been gifted. So I walk into the first night, and it's a cactus, so I know it's strong masculine energy. And I had some deep wounds that I was healing with men in this community. And that was my first and foremost prayer. And the thing is, I had the conversations with these men weeks prior, like the forgiveness, the acceptance, and just like the atonement. But it's after you say the words that the healing process begins. They're not going to take you at face value that you're a different person. It's going to take time showing up. And in this space, just in the few interactions that we had, the few words shared from this space of light and love, it all just like collapsed, gone. And I can say that because it was a feeling. I could say that what was offered to me, to come, sing with us, play these songs, let's have this conversation. You usually can tell when there's something still left that needs to be unentangled, or when you're sharing words that don't feel true. And so what that medicine felt like in the body, and you're drinking throughout the night, you're just taking this powder, you get more, they pass around chacoyote, which is cacao, mixed with the peyote powder. Nice. And the light in your body just builds and builds and builds. And during one of the cycles, because it goes through this pattern, you dance around a fire and moving activates the energy, and then they're singing their prayers in the violin, and then they let you sit around the fire, sing your prayers, so you're active, you're moving energy, and then they have you sit down while they're engaging in their very practical and real light language, which is them speaking to their God, and you're still, and things happen. There was a point, and this is why I wanted to share this, there was a point where I felt the energy build in me, the people around me, the people I could see across the circle, like all 50 of us. It felt like I was on the verge of an ego death that felt similar to like 5-MeO, like this light building. My body is like tingling, like people around me was trembling and crying tears of joy. And it's that point where I'm like, okay, we're all here. The presence of God is with us. And part of me wants to check in to see how my friends are doing. But like, if whatever I say or do in this moment could have a dramatic impact upon their experience right now, I feel the import of this. And so what we're doing is we're wielding this energy, this light. And I swear it just felt like the light of God, just like 5-MeO. And we're interacting with it, with our family. We're putting it into practice, integrating it as we're doing it. And I was just like, wow.
That's awesome.
Next level experience. And there's 2 more things I want to mention, I think, that made it really powerful. Not only did we have masters or an unbroken lineage of like centuries of practice,
nice.
The people that I was doing with were all my community. So it's all people I like knew, and maybe a few like trusted friends of theirs.
Same.
But like you, exactly. It's got that whole village aesthetic to it. There's a lot of safety, a lot of rapport, a lot of trust. And of course, we're all very experienced psychonauts. And we're still doing integration because, there's always refinement.
For sure.
Those 2 elements, like masters of indigenous tradition and practice, and then family, trust and safety, changes everything.
It really does. That's, again, why I like small groups and also familiar settings. The setting is really important, and who you're with is incredibly important. So, yeah, that's why that Santa Barbara house, to me, I've had 3 or 4 experiences there, and they've all been so beautiful. The owners are wonderful. It's just great. So it's nice to have those places you can. I'm looking forward to it. I have nothing scheduled, but it's it'll happen again, and it'll be wonderful, which is great to have.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Love that place. It is a temple. It
yeah,
is a
yeah,
holy
exactly.
space.
And with the Huachuma, yeah, the interior thing that I experienced was really beautiful. But then, yeah, the conversations, that garden and the beehives and all that in the back, to be able to sit with others and just be talking, and even if there was some tension points, there was one individual that I've had some problem with in the past, not problems, but just a little bit of a conflict about what they may have done. Um, the inhibitions are lowered in order to be able to reflect, but it's also out of caring and love. And so I was able to talk to that person. The person welcomed it, which was wonderful, because I'm like, oh, I got this off my chest, and we have communicated, and we're stronger now because the medicine helped me in the right way describe what I was feeling. It wasn't antagonism. It wasn't anger. It was, hey, I feel this, and oh god, it was just gorgeous. Really, really, really nice. So very, very helpful.
Yeah.
So
Hmm. The healing doesn't need to be painful, is what I
yeah,
learned from the cactus.
that's a nice way to look at it. It doesn't need to be painful, right? Some of the work will be painful with these medicines, absolutely. You need to explore some things, or it may well be beneficial to explore some things within you which you may have suppressed. A lot of people, I think, fear psychedelics. I know that people fear psychedelics because, "Oh, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go what's happened to me, or what I feel, or this and that." I'm like, all right, I understand, but then again, the value of freeing that dark energy, that suppressed pain, is tremendously liberating, and we could all benefit from some of that pain being liberated. You know.
Amen. Absolutely. Well, Paul, it has been a great pleasure to have you on. I think that was one of the fastest hours of my
Yeah,
life.
I looked
What a
up. I couldn't believe
spirit
it. Yep.
environment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Wow.
And so, in closing, if
Yeah.
there's a few more words you want to share, some parting thoughts, I offer you space for that. And let us know where we can find you. Let us know about your projects and what support you're looking for, what kind of wishes you have for your work and community. And then we'll call it a wrap.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Um, yeah, with Lamps, I've made a film called Psychedelics and Addiction Recovery. And it's something that we charted for a couple of years. We followed some individuals uh, with various addictions, and how psychedelics have helped free them, free them from their addiction, so they become more intentional in what they want to be, what they're putting out that they are, and then actually are being, is something that was a real need for me to make this film. It's Psychedelics and Addiction Recovery. I've submitted it to the Breaking Festival in England. We'll hear this month whether it's been accepted. I'm really hopeful that it will, because the community there would be wonderful to be able to talk to people. We've had
Oh,
some of
yeah.
those people on our Lamps talks. So anyway, I'm hoping that it'll be there. A woman in the Portland Psychedelic Society has said she saw it and liked it, and is going to help get it displayed there. If anyone out there would like to help display our film, the Psychedelics and Addiction Recovery, we would be more than happy to hear from you. I can be reached on Facebook through the Lamps group, or on Facebook as myself. I'm Mutant, Mutent, on Instagram. I have a photo site and project site, paullisy.com. So through one of those, you can reach me if you'd like. And also the film, The Reach, that I've been talking about, has been made. I will say this: it is hard to picture, to display a lot of what the psychedelics are and mean. Anyway, it's a little bit, it's a primitive film in a sense. It's me trying to show this, and I think some people have said, oh, it's kind of primitive, or whatever, they've been reluctant, and I get that. But it was a heartfelt effort that some people have said, oh, it was very moving, and that was my effort. So anyway, so The Reach is out there. If people want to see that or help me get it out there, if not, that's fine. But those are the two projects. And then we mentioned short stories and other things. I live for creativity, because basically I'm happy when I'm creating, whether it's for a few people or more people. That's fine. But that's me, I guess.
Amazing. Well, thank you for your work, for your movies, for your writings, your stories, and the stories shared here. This
Yeah,
is how we're going to help people understand how to enter into this world,
yeah.
by receiving the stories of those who have already done it. And so, to listeners and viewers out there, if there's anything you want to follow up on, any burning questions, anything around how you may be able to do psychedelics, don't hesitate to reach out. Find me on Facebook, hit me up here on YouTube, leave a comment on Spotify, find me on Instagram. I'm here to help you all figure out how to do this in the best, effective, most powerful, and safe way possible. Until next time, take care.
Thank you, Kyle. You're a powerful individual. I thank you for being here, having me.